Very good morning to you. Welcome to Newsroom. We're coming to you live from Auckland Park in Johannesburg. I'm Shanta Yankis. I'm not alone, joined by Kendall Makamate. He is standing by with our sport. Happy Thursday, Kendall. You good?
It's an awesome Thursday. Yesterday we were covering all sorts of cricket and it comes out with great news for everybody. So yes, it's an awesome Thursday.
Definitely. Let's have a look at our question of the day. Of course, the live Esidimeni hearings resume today. And today we're asking you, what are your expectations? Send us your comments on at SABC Newsroom. Well, we have had a couple of tweets come through this morning already. Let's have a look at those. Alex Motapa says, to start with former MEC Qedani Matlangu. Well, we're not too sure about that today, if she is going to show up.
We've been looking forward to it for several weeks now. Michael Bingham's told us, says, I hope they come to a conclusion soon so that those families can find closure and the Gauteng Health must pay up. Because it can talk till the cows come home, but the fact of the matter is those patients died from negligence while under Gauteng Health's care.
Definitely. And at the beginning of the week, we saw protests taking place in Overval, in the Vaal, as well as in Unisa and Durban, and then again in Pretoria. So today we're actually asking you on our poll, are political parties now turning schools into battlegrounds? Let's have a look at the numbers coming through.
There you have it, 297 votes in and 61% say absolutely yes. Very interesting. A lot of people are thinking yes, there are schools being turned into a battleground by political parties. Let's see what's being said by you on social media.
Now let's see what is behind that 60%. Yes, Michael says politicians have always turned everything into battlegrounds. From churches, schools, H&M racial ads, the Guptas, Cape Town droughts, etc. Well, that's how they roll. And I've always told my friends that politics is not for the faint-hearted. Definitely not, Michael.
Now, Dipansu says South Africa is living under a big lie. So this allows for political interference in such situations.
It definitely does. What are we looking forward to in our sporting question of the day?
Well, definitely looking to talk about this man on our screen right now, Lungingidi. He's a debutant and he gets 6 for 39 against India. Wow. Who'd have said? And also on a track that looked more like it was actually on the subcontinent than it was at Centurion Super Sport Park. This young man has done extremely well. And we want to find out from you, what do you think? Is Lungingidi the next big star for South African cricket?
And Lekasa says, I knew from the beginning that he is a superhero.
Now that he is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal performance by Denver says, no, he's already a star. His domestic level performances speak volumes. He just has to maintain that on the international level. There's a man that has been following Lungingidi playing for the Dolphins throughout the year, and I couldn't agree with you more that Lungingidi is the man.
Definitely. All your news and sports coming up in just a bit. First up, let's have a look at your Thursday morning headlines. Well, the live Esidimeni arbitration hearings resume today, 2 days after the resignation of 2 senior Gauteng Health Department officials. Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa hails the NPA's action against Gupta-linked consultancy firms Trillion and McKinsey as part of a fight against state capture. Well, the future of President Jacob Zuma is expected to be on the agenda of day 2 of the ANC-NEC special meeting, expected to start today. And coming up with all your sports, Kendall Makamate is standing by. Very good morning to you, Kendall. What are we looking forward to in sports this morning?
Oh, lots to look at. We're looking at cricket, yes, but also there was a little bit of a big story about how the PSL is actually coming back into action and a win for somebody who hasn't had one in a while. Good morning to you. This is what we've got planned for you in the sports today. SuperSport United eke out their first win in 8 league games last night when they beat Maritzburg United 1-0.
Broken the deadlock. Aubrey Mudiba gives SuperSport United the lead, and perhaps this is the goal that might break their run of 8 matches without a win.
Former SuperSport striker Jeremy Brook is revealed in Mamelodi Sundowns colours and is already feeling at home.
The change room has welcomed me. I feel like I'm home already.
The star debutant Lunginkidi, the toast of the town, after 6-for-39 leads the charge in the singular destruction of India's batting lineup to give South Africa the win in Centurion.
I just came out here to try pretty much showcase what I can do, and lucky enough it was on my home ground. The support was great and it was just a great moment.
Well, there you have it, Lunginkidi, the toast of the town. He's only 21, by the way. Back now to Shante, who's got the news.
Thank you very much for that, Kendall. Of course, your sporting coming up in the next hour. Let's have a look at your top story. The live Esidimeni arbitration hearing is expected to resume today following a 6-week break. 143 mentally ill patients died after they were transferred to unlicensed NGOs. Well, this after the Gauteng Health Department terminated its contract with Life Esidimeni in order to cut costs. Hannah Jacobus, a deputy director who was in charge of identifying and vetting the NGOs, is expected to testify today. Also expected to testify in the next few days is the former Gauteng Health MEC Gadani Mahlangu, Gauteng Premier David Makura, as well as Health Minister Aaron Motsoaledi. Meanwhile, the Gauteng government says it's up to law enforcement agencies to pursue criminal charges against those implicated in the Health Ombudsman's report, including Drs. Barney Selabano as well as Makhabo Manamela. Selabano and Manamela resigned as head of Gauteng Health Department and Director of Mental Health, respectively, this week. They've been on suspension, facing charges including gross misconduct for their role in the deaths of the Esidimeni patients. Well, Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa has commended the National Public Authority for action against the Gupta-linked consultancy firms Trillian and McKinsey. Addressing the media on the pre-World Economic Forum briefing this morning, Ramaphosa also called for the NPA to increase its speed in the fight against state capture. The NPA served the two companies with notices of intent to attach their assets. The company is believed to be at the center of allegations of state capture.
The other important thing as part of this process is to address the issue of corruption and state capture. And in this regard, we welcome the establishment of the Commission of Inquiry that State President has announced, and we're looking forward to the finalization of the terms of reference of this inquiry. But we've said that in tandem, we want to see action being taken against those who have done wrong things. And we've already started seeing the beginning processes of precisely that. The National Prosecuting Agency is beginning to move, and we welcome that. We welcome the actions that they're beginning to take, and we want them to act with urgency to increase the tempo of the actions that need to be taken. The freezing of assets is an important component of this, but we want to see much more following on the actions that they should have taken some time ago. And colleagues, a message that we will be taking to Davos now will be, we've been saying that we are going to address corruption, and we are deadly serious about addressing corruption, and we're now beginning to see the steps that are being taken in doing precisely this.
Well, the National Prosecuting Authority says it will meet lawyers for Gupta-linked consultancy firms Trillian and McKinsey tomorrow. The companies are expected to seek an out-of-court settlement. McKinsey has already offered to pay back the more than 1.5 billion rand it earned from the contract with Eskom. The NPA served the companies with a preservation order to freeze assets worth an estimated 1.6 billion rand.
The NPA cracking down on corruption as they make moves to recoup monies paid in corrupt deals involving Gupta-linked companies Trillian and McKinsey. The Asset Forfeiture Unit formally served the Gupta-linked companies with a preservation order on Wednesday. This in a bid to recover about 1.6 billion rand, which the NPA says the money is the proceeds of crime. The two companies were paid the money by Eskom for helping it with its turnaround strategy. However, Eskom has demanded the money back, claiming that the contract was awarded unlawfully.
If they pay back the money, it does not absolve anybody from criminal liability. If a person is implicated in acts of criminality, there's a criminal process that is being undertaken by the Hawks, guided by the SCCU. Everybody who is implicated in criminal activities in relation to the matter will be held accountable.
The NPA have described the investigation as complex, this while denying that it's been dragging its feet in taking action against state capture allegations.
We need to be meticulous in our investigations. We do not take any shoddy work to court. Investigation is a process, it is not an event. This is very complex financial investigations.
Despite the freezing of Trillian and Mackenzie assets, the NPA is not yet prosecuting anyone implicated in the matter.
The prosecutors have indicated that they are not ready at this stage to prosecute anyone in respect of the matter because there are outstanding issues. Remember, we're dealing with foreign jurisdictions.
The NPA says both implicated companies have so far complied with the investigations. The NPA has again denied reports that it had waited until the ANC December elective conference to have political backing to prosecute alleged crimes linked to the Gupta family. It says its work started way before the ANC conference. Sipho Stirman, SABC News in Pretoria.
Well, the Gupta-related developments in South Africa will be watched closely around the world, particularly in London, where a number of businesses have been accused of aiding or enabling state capture. Veteran anti-apartheid activist Lord Peter Hain, who sits in the UK Parliament, has been making accusations against a number of companies. Catherine Drew has a roundup from London.
Well, just this week, activist and former government minister here in the UK, Lord Peter Hain, named international law firm Hogan Lovells as the latest business to be embroiled in allegations of corruption. He accused the law firm of producing a whitewash report when asked to investigate alleged wrongdoing at SARS. Now, Hogan Lovells strongly denies these allegations and insists it will help with any inquiry by the legal watchdog. In speaking about the matter this week, Lord Hain mentioned other companies that he has pointed the finger at in the past.
Hogan Lovells are doing, even as I speak, exactly what Bell Pottinger did last year, what KPMG did last year, what McKinsey did last year, and the rest of them. They deny, then as the pressure increases, they're forced to apologize. Why not get the denial out of the way now and simply apologize and then make good what is an outrageous act by them?
So Lord Hain mentions a couple of companies there. The UK-headquartered PR firm Bell Pottinger, which went bankrupt as a consequence of its campaign to sow racial animosity in South Africa, including the creation of fake news to benefit its client Oak Bay Investments, controlled by the Gupta family. Bell Pottinger initially claimed the allegations against them were part of a smear campaign. An investigation by law firm Herbert Smith Freehills found Bell Pottinger had breached ethical standards and had brought the PR industry into disrepute. Dutch-headquartered KPMG, a professional services company and auditor, along with the German software maker SAP, all apologised last year after their work with Gupta-linked companies came to light in leaked emails. Meanwhile, UK-headquartered banks HSBC and Standard Chartered are under investigation here in the UK. The Financial Conduct Authority is investigating whether they facilitated money laundering as a result of their ties to the Gupta family. These were allegations again raised by Lord Peter Hain, who says he is determined to root out those UK businesses that may have aided and abetted the Gupta family in any corruption. Catherine Drew, SABC News in London.
Remaining with the story, we earlier spoke with our Washington correspondent Kate Fisher and asked her about the reported investigations by the U.S. Justice Department and FBI probe into multinational companies like McKinsey and SAP.
Yes, well, I've tried to get in touch with the U.S. Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation here in Washington, D.C. today, and they've told me that they are unable to confirm or deny whether these investigations are ongoing. That, they say, is their normal practice, though. When they're asked by journalists, they say they can't give us any confirmation or denial of whether this is happening. We do know, though, that back in October, it was first reported by British newspaper The Financial Times that this investigation was being conducted by the FBI here in the United States on behalf of the Department of Justice. And at that time, the Financial Times reported that, according to people familiar with the matter, US investigators were looking at individuals, bank accounts and companies in the US for any ties to alleged graft involving the Gupta family, but it gave no further details. So very sketchy details about exactly what the FBI and the Department of Justice are looking into, but certainly it appears that they are investigating, as I say, companies, bank accounts and individuals.
So people here at home might be wondering why the Americans in America are investigating an American company, but the activities actually took place here. But there are some pretty serious rules about American companies and how they work and trade abroad, aren't there?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, these companies cannot be allowed to just act as they wish. They have to comply with the laws of the country in which they are working. And this is what the South African authorities today have launched their first, it's the first time they openly are investigating these companies about their alleged ties with the Gupta family. These charges, these accusations coming from the CIPC leveled against McKinsey, the US-based management consultancy firm. I have been in touch with McKinsey this morning here in the US. As yet, they haven't responded to my request for some kind of comment, although they have commented to other journalists about this matter, saying that they welcome all actions to resolve this issue and they will continue to cooperate with the South African authorities and official investigations into this matter. And of course, when their involvement was first exposed during those leaked emails last year, they were quick to apologise once those emails were leaked.
Reputation is a big thing in the United States and here as well, and we're seeing around the world a number of these companies, particularly that had dealings with Gupta-related companies. I wonder, is there any kind of reporting that's leaving our shores, arriving in the US, that's adding to the woes of McKinsey? Is it suffering any reputational damage from where you are?
I have to say that so far they have remained relatively clean in the American media, if you like. There hasn't been a large amount of reporting of these allegations over here. Partly, I think that is because the US's appetite for news tends to just be rather domestic. They don't actually broadcast a huge amount of international news. Certainly, there appears to have been a lot more coverage of these issues in the United Kingdom. There are also some British firms who are indicated in these allegations, and I do think that the UK media has done far more coverage of this. However, if and when the Department of Justice here in the US starts to give us some more details about these investigations and about who and what they are looking into, then I do think that the US media will start to pick up on this a lot more. At the moment, I think it's really a lack of detail and a scarcity of facts for them, that they haven't got that much to say with regards to what's happening to the US companies involved.
Well, back to pre-World Economic Forum briefing, Ramaphosa highlighted the importance of the public, labour and private sectors to work together to help recover the South African economy.
Team South Africa that is going to Davos, it would be good and desirable for all of us to underpin everything we are going to say, to do in Davos with that clear message that we want to work together, solidify this compact that we would like to see built. And what are going to be the key components of this compact? The key components of this compact should be policy certainty. We certainly want to see policy certainty across all, if you like, platforms. Where there's been policy uncertainty, we want to work together with the private sector, with labor, with community-based organizations as government to infuse that certainty. We want, as part of this compact, to have economic recovery. Our most important task right now is to address the challenge of jobs, inequality, and poverty. And we will be able to address all that by recovering or getting our economy to recover. And we want to work together to ensure that there is economic recovery. Government cannot do it alone, nor can the private sector do it alone. So we want to work together, all of us as key role players in our economy, to achieve this purpose. And we want to make South Africa an attractive domain or an attractive country for investment, and address those issues that stand in the way of investments flowing into our country. As we go to Davos, my sole purpose in going there is to go and sell the country. And I'd like to believe that it is a common and collective purpose, as all of us are going to Davos to go and sell South Africa. And we should do that with the purpose of attracting investors to come to South Africa. So it will be increasing investor confidence in our country and also addressing the key challenges that we face. Yes, we have been downgraded. It's going to be a mammoth task to get us out of this trench or out of this hole. But working together, I'd like to believe that we can.
The Finance Minister Malusi Gigaba says Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa is capable of selling the country to investors. Minister Gigaba says that the Deputy President is also well capable of stimulating the economy and creating jobs for South Africans. The Minister was also speaking at the pre-World Economic Forum briefing earlier.
This is going to be the first wave that the Deputy President will be attending as now the President of the ruling party. No pressure. A lot of people internationally would want to interact with him, to hear you, to hear your plans for the future, and to get a reassurance that, as you said over the weekend, as we concluded the 106th anniversary celebrations of the African National Congress, that South Africa is open for business. But the Deputy President will be leading our delegation also at during an important year, this being the year of the 100th anniversary celebrations of the birthday of our late icon, Mr. Nelson Mandela. It's going to be expected that the Deputy President will, in outlining the message, in leading us in outlining the message for the country, addresses himself to issues of how unity, how renewal, how jobs are going to be pursued. We have come at a critical point in our country where the issue of unity features prominently and is a top priority, where we need to undertake programs that are going to ensure the renewal of our nation. The renewal we are talking about does not only relate to the ruling party, but the entire nation itself needs to go through that process and period of renewal. Topmost on the agenda of this country is the creation of jobs, the growing of our economy, and for the country to demonstrate how it intends to seize on the opportunities which are presented by the positive economic outlook globally in order to raise the levels of economic performance in South Africa so that our own economy grows faster and bigger as well as inclusively. I think that...
Well, the ANC's Khotla this weekend will be preceded by a special two-day meeting starting on Thursday. This comes as speculation mounts that the party's National Executive Committee may recall President Jacob Zuma to avoid two centres of power, one at Luthuli House and the other at the Union Buildings.
It's just under a month since the election of the new ANC leadership, and the winds of change are blowing. Those accused of looting SOEs are especially feeling the heat. This NEC is expected to elect its National Working Committee and subcommittee structures. And then the elephant in the room.
This issue of having a different president of the ANC and a different president of the country is a very delicate matter. And could be seen by others as having two centers of power, but we don't see it in that regard. There's only one center of power. The center of power is the African National Congress.
However, the ANC is non-committal about Zuma's immediate future. Some say even if he were to stay, his power is diminished.
Whether Mr. Zuma stays on as president or not, I think in effect his time is over. He's clearly not making the decisions at the moment. The decisions are being made by the new leadership of the ANC, not only Cyril Ramaphosa, but the other members of the top six in the NEC.
He also weighed in on the NPA's newfound vigor, acting against those implicated in corruption allegations.
So this would not have happened before the election of Cyril Ramaphosa. It's happening now only because Cyril Ramaphosa is the ANC president.
Another issue on the agenda is the future of the PECs in KwaZulu-Natal and Free State, declared invalid by higher courts. Both are appealing the judgments. It's yet to be seen if SG Ace Magashula, also Free State chair, will steer the discussion regarding his province, as he is seen to be conflicted in the matter. Analyst says he ought to recuse himself. Muntlengani Dipoko, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Registration for 2018 opened this week in some of South Africa's institutions of higher learning ahead of the start of the academic year. Fears of chaos in the build-up to the registration were confirmed following the Economic Freedom Fighters' call for all eligible students to turn up at institutions of higher learning as walk-in applicants. The call follows President Jacob Zuma's December announcement of free tertiary education last month. Walk-in applications and registrations at UNISA, the Sunnyside campus in Pretoria, were halted on Monday after chaos erupted when two student formations clashed over registration for the new academic year. In Polokwane, 6 students were injured during a stampede at Capricorn TVET College. The right for good education, which is a constitutional right, has become a nightmare for many who still want to secure a place at institutions of higher learning. Well, Deputy Minister of Higher Education, Mr. Buti Manamela, joins us in studio to give us latest on the registration at institutions of higher learning. Very good morning to you, sir. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. It's down tools at UNISA. We've seen campuses erupt both in Pretoria as well as in Durban. What is your reaction on this, and how is this affecting the 2018 registration process?
Look, I think firstly, in the overall, we are quite impressed with how, close to 156 campuses, TVET colleges, and more than 25 universities have done well with respect to this registration. Of course, there was an incident at TVET College which we quickly intervened and helped the institution to smoothly help the students to apply. On Monday, only close to 7,000 students applied, and they are now getting feedback with regards to that. And since Monday, I've also been in contact with Professor Mandla Makanya and the leadership of NEHAU and some of the students' organizations, because the situation in UNISA has got nothing to do with the preparedness of UNISA in terms of the registration, but has got to do with the fact that there are wage negotiations that are taking place now as we speak. In fact, the union has been granted the a protected strike, and we really want to appeal to them that let's not interfere with the registration process, because it's really affecting thousands of very poor and deserving people who want to be part of that institution. As it relates to the students' organization and the university, we have been assured that those issues have been resolved, and we are prepared to, if the situation escalates, to attend to those matters.
Nadia, has the government opened a can of worms by announcing free higher education without necessarily plans taking place or plans explained of the implementation process? We're seeing huge influxes of students at colleges all over, and it seems that universities can't necessarily handle just the registration part alone, the walk-ins and the online applications.
Look, firstly, I must emphasize the fact that many of the institutions, immediately after the announcement by the president, were convened by the Department of Higher Education and Training throughout the whole of the December into January. We have developed a Q&A, frequently asked questions. We have developed a manual, a step-by-step manual, together with the universities and the TVET colleges. Throughout the whole of the better part of last year, preparations were being made in order to ensure that this process becomes smooth. One of the biggest challenge has been the fact that even though most students have applied online, they still want to go physically to those institutions and affirm. And it's nothing out of the ordinary, except in the instance of the Capricorn TVET College. Many of the students worked together with the registration officers of those institutions in order to ensure that the registration. So we think that we should not amplify the two incidents, which is UNISA and Capricorn College, in order to muddy a somewhat very smooth process. There are also, the challenge with the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, which I believe, is now being handled. I've been in contact with both the chair and the CEO and with various SRCs in order to ensure that students who have applied, who are deserving, get notified of whether they do qualify and all of that. And I think the big issue here is that the announcement had to be made based on the commitment that the president made last year, that a decision will have to be effected in 2018.
Okay, let's discuss the protests, moving away from it, but also highlighting the protests. Do you think that political parties are turning what's happening on the ground, the situation at registration and online and walk-ins, do you think that political parties are making schools somewhat their battleground? Not only in Durban, we've also seen Pretoria protests, and then still even at outside of the high school there involved at Overval with regards to that situation.
Look, I'm not very familiar with the incident at the Val, but what I'm certain is that at UNISA, and we've also seen attempts at Capricorn TVET College, where in political parties and student political formations affiliated to political parties tried to take advantage of the situation. And I think, we also applaud the parents and the students who went there to apply, and not cooperating with all of this. What I can guarantee you is that if the president did not make the announcement last year on the 16th of December, the situation could have been much worse than it is now, because students were much more determined to cause mayhem in institutions.
Well, that is our poll that we are running today. We have been having a look at some of the tweets there where we have posed that question at SABC Newsroom. Are political parties turning schools into a battleground? 61% of people agreeing, saying yes. 39% are saying no. And we have looked at some of the comments behind that. This one coming in from Michael says, politicians have always turned everything into battlegrounds, from churches, schools, H&M, racial ads, Guptas, Cape Town droughts, etc. Well, that's how they roll, and I've always told my friends that politics is not for the faint-hearted. I think we have one more from Dipansu. South Africa is living under a big lie, so this allows for political interferences in such situations. And I think just one more coming in from Lekasa. This is with regards to what you wanted to know at Wishko Overfall.
Yeah.
The EFF is trying to score political points, but I indicated last week that anything and everyone associated with EFF will result with violence or being arrested. The EFF is detrimental to our lives. Let's move away from that. In having a look at the influxes of students that are actually coming and that are not possibly going to be getting a space at university or TVET college, let's look at the issue of bogus colleges that students might be prone to.
Yeah. Look, from tomorrow we are rolling out a campaign of information to alert prospective students and parents about procedures or processes to follow when they want to apply at a private institution. I will be going through various spots where people are concentrated, starting tomorrow in Johannesburg and throughout the whole country through this process of information. We will also be identifying, upon getting information of bogus colleges, we'll be identifying those together with the South African Police Services, ensure that we close those institutions in order to protect the future of our country. And I want to urge all those who want to register with private institutions to check with our website, dhet.gov.za. There is a list of registered private institutions and the programs which they offer. Just a day or two ago, we just exposed one of the colleges, Santon Technical College, which is registered but is offering a program that is not part of
registered.
Exactly.
That's one of the issues.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So check the college if it's registered. If it is registered, also check if the program that you want to, ensure that you study for, whether that program is also, that college is certified to register. But I think the other thing is, we have more than 500,000 spaces in public institutions, learnerships, artisans, bursaries through CETAs and all of that. So if those who pass their matric or their grade 10, they want to further their studies, send your ID to the number 49200, which is our catch system, and through that you will then be advised on spaces that are available.
So what then is the department's stance on those colleges that are offering maybe 1 or 2 accredited courses that have been registered, but have 6, 7 others that have not been registered with the department or are not accredited?
Look, our stance is quite very clear. We have to close down those sections which are not registered, and further legal action will have to be taken in order to ensure that the students who have been duped into those type of situations are compensated in one way or another. We think that it is unfortunate for these criminals to manipulate the anxieties of parents and students and to offer programs which essentially do not exist or are not accredited. But please be careful. Please ensure that you find out if that institution is registered and if the program they claim to be providing is also registered before you spend any cent on those type of institutions.
Definitely. So important that website there, dhet.gov.za, to check if that college is accredited and registered with the High Department of Education. Well, of course, thank you very much for joining us here, Minister, Deputy Minister, that is, for Higher Education, Buti Manamela, this morning on the State of Higher Education 2018 academic year. Let's move on now. Let's have a look at our picture of the day. This one comes from Cricket South Africa. Look at that smile, the man of the match. Take a bow. Ngidi Lungi, you champion. Hashtag SA versus India. Of course, look at that smile. I was mentioning to Kendall that he has a lovely smile, and Kendall was mentioning back to me that he is only 21. Let's move on now. Let's have a look at comments of the day. This one comes from @Colson_Casey. My heart says the school is racist. My mind says if a white child lived in Soweto and only schools near them were in Zulu or Sotho medium schools, would the same argument be made for them? Hashtag Wishgwil Uvafa. Well, we do know that the department is set to appeal the case. Of course, the judgment was handed down to deny those 55 students to not go and study in Afrikaans at Wishgwil Uvafa in the Vaal. We'll be keeping you updated on that story. Let's have a look at what's making headlines in and around our courts today. We'll start off in the Northwest Province. Well, a suspect who has been running a learnership scam is expected to apply for bail in the Molopo Magistrates Court in Mahikeng. 35-year-old Oscar Mkwane was running a bogus learnership recruitment initiative in Mahikeng. We'll stay in the Northwest Province. 4 men have been arrested for the murder of a well-known owner of a funeral parlor in Taung, and they are expected to apply for bail. Tuma Potudi and 3 others were arrested in Rooiwal last year for allegedly shooting and killing Khomotso Serei. Let's move on to KZN and the Midlands. The state is expected to deliver its closing arguments in the bail application of Crummond farmer Philip Solomon in the New Hanover Magistrates Court. Solomon faces murder and attempted murder charges. He allegedly fired 3 shots and fatally wounded 42-year-old Morton Kubane at a funeral service on his farm 2 weeks ago. It is alleged that Solomon demanded the service be stopped and the mourners leave his farm. We'll stay in KZN. The case of 5 men accused of killing SACP member Nkosikelo Blose continues in the Durban Magistrates Court. Her daughter Nomfundo was the first in the witness stand, followed by Wandile Khumalo, the son of the former eThekwini Municipal Mayor Jane Khumalo. Blose testified on how she had seen gun-wielding men enter and exit the tavern where her mother was shot dead. Khumalo will continue his testimony today, and we will be keeping you updated on this and other cases that are taking place before our courts. For now, though, that is a wrap-up of Newsroom. Thank you very much for joining us. All your updates coming up after the break.
Our stories.
How do I begin?
Our lives. When all seems to fail, we will raise our voices a bit louder for our justice.
I went into absolute shock. My whole body was shaky. I couldn't hold a phone, but there he was. I couldn't believe the nonchalance that they were still in the area 2 weeks later.
And in times when the justice system is not able to help us with our individual battles,
I'm willing to do anything. What are you doing? Nothing. Feeling sorry for yourself? No, it's not an option.
These are our stories on Cutting Edge Channel 404.
Entrepreneurship and taking charge of your own destiny is a mindset, and it's something that should start at a very young age.
I started when I was around about 3 or something, because I have a bunch of paintings in the office. I have a teacher that teaches me and my class how to do business, and he was the one who taught me.
Being an entrepreneur makes you money-wise.
Before everyone spent their money, I would sell the little things I painted, and I'd sell my drawings and stuff like that.
In business, it is important to keep record of all your transactions.
I have a passion and I love making anything, so I chose to make Play-Doh and I'm passionate about it.
Catch Bupilong every Friday at 17:30.
Welcome back. Well, EFF and ANC members are back at Hoërskool Oeverval in Vereniging in the Vaal to protest. They're, of course, ruling against a court ruling that the Afrikaans medium school does not have to take in 55 English-speaking learners as other nearby schools could accommodate them. Meanwhile, parents of learners of the school say they fear for the safety of their children. Well, this follows yesterday's violent protest in which 8 people were wounded and at least 10 had been arrested. Well, indeed, we will be joined in studio from Gauteng Education Basic spokesperson, Mr. Steve Maboda, to give us more information on essentially what has happened. We do know that that case had been brought forward a couple of weeks ago with regards to 55 students having placements at Hoërskool Oeverval. Of course, the school is saying that it is an Afrikaans school, and of course, the learners that are seeking placements there are English-speaking students. So we do know that the department had taken the school to courts over it. Of course, there had been a judgment that had been handed down. And as far as we know now, that the Gauteng Education Department will be appealing that judgment that has been handed down. For the latest, we now talk to a Gauteng Education spokesperson, Mr. Steve Maboda, about the situation. A very good morning to you. Thank you very much for joining us here. Essentially, what is the department's reaction to the protests that have taken place?
Look, our message is one on the disruption of schooling in all the areas. I mean, we have so many disruptions at different schools, and our message is very clear that any disruption to our schooling, it's dire, and it's difficult actually to, reverse the consequences thereof, because we don't need to have a catch-up plan, which must be then, involved. Make sure that we, catch up on what you might have lost in terms of your lessons, because any parallel activity that happens outside the school, whether learners are in class, they're prone not to focus, because when you're talking a primary school, because we have disruptions at some primary school in North as well, learners are there, but it will be difficult for even teachers to focus and learners. So hence we discourage any disruption of our schooling, whether it's justified. And we are not saying people must not march. People can march, people can raise issues, but we need to take in cognizance that any disruption, it's taking us back as a department.
Now, what is the department doing to try calm the situation? We saw the protests yesterday, actually, with protesters and now parents of children getting involved.
Look, we try, to interact with all the stakeholders that are involved. If I were to make an example with Klipspruit West, we interacted with stakeholders, trying to come with the resolutions on how we're going to, agree on moving forward. We will have an outstanding meeting with the consent group, which we will facilitate. And in Oeverval, it's a different ball game as well. You have so many groupings that are coming now there in the space, but you will understand that we have a court judgment there. And for us, we said, because after we consulted with the parents, we said the learners must be placed at a different school. And we have placed about 18 learners
of the 55.
Of the 55. 18 of them, they are placed at the Riverside High School. We visited them with the MEC yesterday, and we are satisfied. The integration into the school, principal assured us that they're not going to be segregated and classified as, those from Oeverval. So we are very much happy about the process.
And what about the remaining learners? What's happening with them?
Look, you'll understand that when we started the court processes and some, parents knew that probably they're not wanted. Some, they opted to, go in other areas. So we'll then have to, after this process of accepting those that are going to Riverside, we'll consolidate the figures and say, this is where we stand. Because figures were also a consternation at the court, because, the applicant was giving us different figures. As you'll know, they had to justify that they are full, and we had the original 55. So we'll then have to consolidate and check on how many have not been placed. But as a matter of principle, we'll continue to fight the decision, because by 2019 we are looking at that school being probably a parallel medium school, because we want to accommodate the English learners there.
But what now is the reasoning for wanting to push forward with this so hard? It is an Afrikaans school. It's 55 English-speaking learners. Are they going to learn in Afrikaans, or is the department expecting the school to teach the 55 learners in English?
No, it's our school. Let's put that very clear. It's a public ordinary school. It's not a private school.
But it's an Afrikaans school.
I'll come there. It's a public ordinary school. It's our school. We have a responsibility as the Gauteng province to administer that school. So the SGB in March will be lapsing. There will be a new SGB there. So the new SGB has a responsibility by law to, submit their language policy to us to say, this is our language policy, and how are you approving it? Are you agreeing to that? And we'll have a discussion, because the court said we did not consult. We will then consult and make sure that we have a parallel medium of instruction. Parallel medium instruction, it means, it does not say you abolish Afrikaans. Afrikaans will be taught and English will be taught.
So the introduction of English into
So you're not going to have a class like because if you go dual medium, it's different. It says you will then have in a classroom, expect an Afrikaans teacher to teach in Afrikaans and in English. So you don't want that. We are going for a parallel medium. Parallel medium is very clear. You will have English classes and you will have Afrikaans classes. So by that, we'll have a school that has children that are growing together. They will be playing, they will be educated. Because those English-speaking children are residing in the area. Now, for convenience of their benefit to education, we are taking them 16 kilometers away from, that school. But we have agreed with the parents to say, in the meantime, we need to do that, because we cannot justify learners being at home because we are fighting the courts.
So the learners are at home. The remaining learners of the 55, they haven't been placed in schools as yet.
The 18 have been placed at Riverside. So we will come, because we said, let's give parents an opportunity, because parents want to fight. There's those parents who want to continue to fight and say, we're not accepting this. So we are on a continuous basis working very closely with the parents to say, let's go for this compromise solution to say, let's place the learners at different schools, and the process of teaching and learning will continue. Meanwhile, we fight the cause, because we're fighting a principle now. If the learners are placed, we fight a principle. By 2019, we'll have a school that is a para.
So then, of course, this
medium.
then works both ways. If this was an English school and there were 55 Afrikaans-speaking learners, or another language-speaking learners, because now you're basing it now on the basis of principle.
Yes, we are saying in this country there's no area where you have Afrikaans-speaking people staying on their own. Do you have that area? Don't have. So we expect me residing within the required radius to go outside that place and get a school. Meanwhile, a school is a stone throw away. Because of language, I can't access that school. No, not in this country. We live together. We don't have an area for African-speaking people. That is abolished. I mean, it's gone. So why can't we then, our children, as they grow together, why can't they go to the same school? That's our argument. It's a principle argument, which, there's no one who can argue. Unless if we have areas where we have Africans only speaking people residing there on their own, then probably that will be justified. But in this country, we don't have that.
And that's where we will leave that. That was a Gauteng Education spokesperson, Mr. Steve Mabona. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
And on that note, let's take a short break here on Newsroom. More coming up after the break.
We take an in-depth look of all your stories of the day across the world.
Last month, Mkhwebane said that the bank had failed in its duties to protect the public by not ensuring that ABSA repaid an apartheid-era bailout given to the failed bank, Bank-Corp. The rand fell nearly 2% on her remarks.
My effort, in my opinion, is going to be to build a Zimbabwe that I believe in, as opposed to remaking a Zimbabwe of the past that I cannot do anyway. So I'm absolutely clear on this.
We need to start showing more commitment by government that they are committed to working with business, and therefore that should start to stimulate confidence, and with confidence comes investment, and with investment hopefully comes growth.
Stay tuned to Primetime News every day from 18 hours.
Meet Tebomia. In 2012, when he was just 17 years old, he got arrested. Today, at 22, looking through what used to be his cell, it all seems surreal. He was released from Logop Juveniles Correctional Center in Johannesburg early this year. His 10-year sentence for housebreaking and robbery was reduced to 5 years. Growing up in the streets of Zondi in Soweto, he never imagined he would end up behind bars.
My friends were good people until where we led each other astray. We influenced each other with bad habits like smoking. We started smoking benzene, glue. Then it continued, drank alcohol, and all this other stuff, like going partying and everything.
Then it escalated.
I didn't have anything to smoke, like I was already hooked into Nyaupe. So I didn't have nothing to smoke, and my friends all were turning their backs on me. They didn't want to give me some smoke and everything, because you'll have to hustle, meant for himself, because now, it's other habit. Like you can't sleep if you haven't smoked, or you get cramps, like you gain this disease because of Bemanga. So that night I knew I won't sleep if I don't get the fix.
What was meant to be a once-off thing didn't go according to plan.
Already next door is I'm respawn, and because I'm scared, I couldn't find a proper place for me to hide. I just climbed a tree. Like on that yard, there's maybe a garden, so there's a big tree. I climbed that tree up and stayed there until I got arrested.
He began to introspect and envisioned a better life for himself.
Everyone is looking at his own sentence. Like, Mena, I'm raping it's none of your business. Just when I begin the because you can also fall a victim if you want to stand up for that person.
Today, the sky is the limit for Tsepo.
At the current moment, I'm not working.
Welcome back. Well, the live Esidimeni arbitration has resumed following a 6-week adjournment. Let's cross there live.
Your community health centres, district hospitals, regional hospitals, academic and specialised hospitals.
Yes. And your responsibilities as the Deputy Director, what do they entail in relation to NGOs? What do you do?
NGOs I'm employed in NGOs is my core responsibility.
Yes.
So whatever, there are people that are assisting me within the other districts, and I receive all documentation I execute all work, I motivate, I advise. In terms of auditing, also the final auditing reports comes to me where I have to motivate to my director in terms of to be licensed or not, based on the recommendation from the districts.
Yes. Just explain it quite clearly. You have said that you are responsible for 2 districts, and there are 5 districts. And out of that, you are responsible for NGO. Are you saying that you are responsible in general for all the NGO within the province?
Yes, Council, for all the NGOs within Gauteng province, within the 5 districts.
So over and above that, you were assigned a further responsibility to look at these 2 districts, that is Esidimeni and Ekurhuleni.
Yes, Council.
Okay. And why was that so?
What Dr. Manamela expressed to us in terms of delegation of work in the subdivisions, because of the enormity of mental health services within the province, so that there can be a person be responsible in terms of if somebody within the district or an outside person or department needs any assistance, advice or clarity or support,
yes,
that a specific person can then be turned to assist with whatever matter is at hand.
And still, this was in relation to NGOs for Esidimeni and Ekurhuleni.
Yes, NGOs within Esidimeni and Ekurhuleni district, and that also then includes your clinic services, your district hospital services.
Yes. And you said you will receive reports from these districts. Who was responsible for managing these districts?
What I've done, we've appointed district mental health NGO coordinators. Within the district services, you have mental health coordinators that oversees all the work within that particular district.
Yes.
And then we have special mental health NGO coordinators within each district. And due of the fact that there's so many NGOs within each district to assist and for execution of work.
Okay. And in the execution of this work, that is specifically in relation to these NGOs, and all of these, that is district coordinators, they report to you in relation to all matters that is relating to these NGOs.
Yes, Council.
Yes. And this will include licensing of NGOs, the number of NGOs which exists within a district.
Yes, Council.
Okay. And how would, how frequent will they report to you?
The districts will report to me on, if it's normal circumstances and there's no challenges, on a quarterly basis, I'll receive a brief report from all district services that will inform me what's the circumstances with normal NGOs, if there was any incidents or challenges. So I'll receive all this. But if it's major concern, I would be informed with immediate effect.
Yes. And now it is a common cause that there was the project called the Gauteng Marathon project. Are you aware of, or are you familiar with this project?
Yes, Council.
And are you also familiar that there were certain NGOs which were licensed to receive patients from Life Esidimeni?
Yes, Council.
Okay. So what I want to find out from you is, tell us in your own words the requirements for licensing NGOs. As you
just before you do, how long had you worked in the Department of Health? And in particular in mental health services?
30 years, Justice.
30?
Yes.
30?
30.
Thank you.
Yes. And in these 30 years, prior to you being appointed a deputy director, what were your other duties? You can just summarize them.
I was working in the Tshwane Pretoria area. I was assistant director there, overseeing mental health services as a whole, from community services up to specialized hospitals, supporting, advising, and also motivating whatever comes at the end from all those facilities. I was responsible for that.
Were you ever responsible for NGOs?
Yes, sir. In terms of NGOs within the Tshwane district, prior to my coming to the provincial level, there were, when I started as an assistant director within Tshwane, though I was working there previously, there were only 3 NGOs. And then I've opened up, I think, approximate 18 NGOs within the Pretoria area in very good standing.
Okay. No, it's fine. So I've requested you to set out the requirements or the procedure for licensing an NGO.
Okay, Council. The procedure for licensing is, in terms of referral of new or existing for expansion NGOs, would be from communities, different departments, colleagues, or a need or a crisis that we have to attend to. Then the district mental health NGO coordinator will then go out and do a pre-audit. A pre-audit is, there's an audit sheet that we use, a 3-page sheet, where they then will go out. But prior to that, it entails a lot of work that needs to go in. That person will do a community survey, visit other community entities like...
I think go a little bit slower. We're taking notes.
Oh, okay. Visit other areas to affirm and to acquaint themselves what is within the community.
Yes.
And only thereafter they'll then set up a meeting with the person that has requested or the referral, a date to go and visit the specific NGO. She will then meet, he or she will then meet with the manager and explain the purpose, and by that time the person will know the purpose of the visit. Have a short discussion with the person, she will go around and do an observation. And at that stage, no promises would be made, no rectifications, because it's a fact-finding and to see what is at hand. Thereafter, the person will then go back to the office, report to her immediate supervisor.
This is the pre...
In the district, the pre-audit.
Pre-audit.
Yes, go to a supervisor, discuss the matter, and we'll set up a meeting with the rest of the mental health practitioner team, which will then consist out of your occupational therapist, your physio, environmental health officer, infection control person, your if the need be, after a pre-audit, the doctors will be roped in. It's either medical officer, your psychiatrist, local authority, environmental health officer, and nutritionalist, and also co-opt, based on a knowledge and observation from the pre-audit, people will then be co-opt to also accompany this visit.
Yes.
A thorough visit will then be conducted at this NGO by all these experts.
What is that thorough visit?
There's a more broader, form, a thick form of about 22 pages that will be then surveyed throughout that, within that service.
Is that still called a pre-audit?
No, that's a formal audit. The pre-audit audit has been done already. So this is a formal audit by the experts within each field that will support this NGO manager. And each one will look at their category. The PHC nurse will look at the patients. The social worker will look at where's the patients coming from, what are the challenges. And each one will do that. Then at the end, the form will then be completed, and a feedback would be given to this manager, giving all the findings to this person.
Yes.
And still no promises would be made or rectifications to the facility, whatever there is. They'll just give a report back. Each one will go then back to the office and construct a formal report in terms of all the findings. There's a lot of administrative work also involved within this, which will the manager, the NGO manager will look at this.
But how many people would be engaged in the way you describe?
You
talked about a doctor, you talked about two nurses, you talked about local authority. Would you just describe to me, would you just tell me the bodies, the warm bodies that would do the pre-audit and the formal audit?
The pre-audit will just consist out of the mental health coordinator, NGO coordinator, and a support. She can take any person, one of the experts of the mental health practitioners along, or if there's nobody and due to time and work constraints, she can conduct that alone. Within the formal audit, it's all the people that I've mentioned, and it could arrive up to 8 to 9 people that will visit this NGO.
So let's just get it clear on record. For, formal audit, there'll be about 8 professionals who would do the audit.
Yes.
And the 8 would be made up of what category of professionals?
As I've said, Justice, it will be an occupational therapy that will look at in terms of what is the functional level of these users at that particular, if there are any users. If there's no users, they do it in conjunction. She will look at the type of patients there is and what their challenges are. At the facility itself, the rooms or
let's not
space.
Digress. Just identify the professionals.
Oh, okay. It's
we may
the
come back and
occupational.
say what does each do. But for now,
just
an OT is an occupational therapist,
a physiotherapist, a nutritionalist, infection control manager, environmental health officer. Between province and local authority, they've got different prescriptive roles that they play. So it will then both from both sides that will also join the group. What did I say still?
Well, you said 8 people.
Yeah. If there's, based on the pre-audit, what the manager's observation was, and it needs to be inclusive of a doctor psychiatrist, they will be roped in. I've said a social worker. I can't think now, I've mentioned it earlier on.
And these professionals are required every time there is an audit.
A formal audit, Justice.
Formal audit of an NGO.
Yes, Justice.
And this is before the license is granted.
Yes, yes, Justice.
Thank you. Counsel.
Yes. And after the completion of the formal audit, what do you do? Do you draft a report or what?
I will not draft the report, Counsel.
Yes.
The different team members and the mental health coordinator, all the team members will submit all documentation to the manager and NGO manager, who will then construct a complete report in terms of from services up to administrative necessities will then be included. It will then be discussed with her immediate supervisor. Then they will come up with recommendations. Do we open up this NGO or do we close down? And if there was perceived a challenge or a crisis that they've observed, and patients should be removed immediately, we've got a policy according to that, so they will then construct the report like that. Then it goes to their chief director within the district.
It's a pre-audit.
No, it's a formal
audit. How would you talk about shutting down when we have not even opened the NGO?
Justice, if it's after the it can be during the pre-audit or during the formal audit. When the staff member goes out and see there's a challenge and it's a crisis, we cannot keep these people on the premises. So that will be then communicated. Then the execution will then be faster to complete the process. So each one, remember with all the team members that goes out, each one within its own expertise or field, will then carry out and draw up a report. The social worker, for instance, will also gather information. Where's the people coming from? What's the addresses? Do they have families? How come they've been admitted there? All those things will then be drawn up. So if it's a crisis and the place is not adequate to host the people there at that stage, it will be communicated with the manager. And it's not as simple as it's, besides the manager, they have to set up an urgent meeting. The NGO manager will set up an urgent meeting with the board of that specific facility to discuss these matters.
Aren't we tying ourselves up in all sorts of knots? I thought you were describing the procedure for awarding
the license. That is all part of the license, Justice. Because before you can give out a license, you need to know what is at the facility. Is there a board? That is a legal requirement to have a board of directors
Are there
for the
people
facility.
who set up NGOs without applying for a license?
They will be, what the NGO manager will do. After the pre-audit, she'll have a quite vast knowledge. Do we continue with this? Do we support this NGO? There's so many limitations that if there's patients in, the patients were then temporarily removed from that facility and placed in another facility for...
Ms. Jacobs, let me assist you. I think you did not understand the question. The question is, one, are there people who start NGOs without the necessary licensing processes? So that is one example.
Yes.
So if I had not started an NGO and I simply approach you requesting a license, will the procedure be the same?
Yes, yes, Council, it will be the same. If a person approaches and says, I want to start,
yes.
So the same process would be followed. The manager will ask, do you have a space, do you have a place? If not, she will be taken through the legal process, what needs to be in place. This is the documentation, that is what the facility should look like. All that. If it's a place that's already in existence,
yes,
and there are patients on the premises, that is why I say execution will then be much quicker. So the pre-audit will be done, the formal audit will be done, the necessary meetings with the board and the family members on there so that they understand what the findings was.
And on either scenario, these 8 professionals will go out there and satisfy themselves.
Yes, Justice. Yes. And then after the chief district manager will then sign off that document. After that, the document will then be sent up to provincial level, where I will go through the document, discuss it with my team members and the director. I will then go out back with the mental health coordinator to verify the findings on the document.
Yes.
Then after that, based on the recommendations of the district, I will also motivate and come up with final recommendation, and the place would then be licensed.
And who signs these licenses? Who issues out these licenses?
Who issue out the licenses?
Yes. Who
the
signs
signed
off?
licenses.
Yes.
You ask that who
signs
it?
these licenses?
According to legislation, the provincial department is responsible to sign off licenses.
Who within the department? Is the HOD?
When I came to the provincial office, and after my first year of making out, my responsibility is to construct and compile the licenses. Then I would discuss it with documentation with the director to verify that each one is authentic. And that will be then given to the director. So with my period within the province, Dr. Mnamela was signing the licenses. But the first year, I was sort of verifying myself who else in the past signed the licenses. And according to my knowledge, previous directors has also signed these licenses. And my understanding was that the HOD may also delegate that responsibility if he don't have time or if he doesn't, by letter for that person to execute.
Thank you. Now, let's get to specifics. Let me refer you to Bundle 7. There should be a bundle of documents there in front of you. Are you there?
Yes,
Are you there?
I've got the bundle, sir.
Okay. The first page on the bundle is 2370. Are you on that first page?
Yes, Council.
And what is the document on that page?
It's a license in terms of the Mental Health Care Act number 17 of 2002.
And the date of the license?
First day of April 2016.
And for which period?
The period is, license is valid for the period 1 April 2016 to 31 March 2017.
Yes. And from that page until page 2416, those are all licenses.
Yes. Yes, Council, I see.
Yes. And are you familiar how were these licenses issued?
These were the licenses for 16, 17. Am I familiar how it was issued?
Yes.
Yes, Council.
Were you involved in the processes as you explained it?
Yes, Council. Not the processes I've explained, but of executing and compiling, formulating these licenses, I'm aware.
Yes. Was that process, as you had explained it, complied with?
No, Council.
And why was it not complied with?
During the period of compiling these licenses, we received an instruction from Dr. Manamela that it's unusual circumstances situation, that normal processes cannot be followed, and due to the imminent closure of Life Esidimeni.
Yes. So, in the issuance of these licenses, what was your role?
My role was, I was delegated to make out these licenses.
Yes.
And when I also alluded to Dr. Manamela, but we cannot do this because we have to follow the other processes in order for us to be certain that we follow the legal procedure. And then again, Dr. Manamela said it's unusual circumstances and there's time frames for the closure of Life Esidimeni.
And when
so what I was instructed to do was, normally with all these processes, after the normal process, we will also have a formal adjudication process to formulate the whole process before we could start compiling licenses. So that process also wasn't followed.
It will help if you listen to the question.
Yes, I
try and deal exactly
with the
it.
question. Okay,
fewer words often help. Better than more words.
Okay,
just listen to counsel. He has prepared and he has a clear route to lead you.
Okay.
Again, I ask you, just listen to her and just answer the specific question, and he will follow up if he wants more from you. Thank you. Counsel?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, Counsel, what was said, I was instructed to use the budget letter to make up the licenses.
A budget letter?
Yes, Counsel.
What is the budget letter?
After the formal processes, and I will send a letter out to the districts to submit their budget letters for the following financial year as specified here. So I will receive those in conjunction with all the other documentation, but at this stage it was only I've worked with a budget letter, that's alone.
Yes. And when these licenses were issued, were you satisfied that they comply with the requirements?
No, Counsel, I wasn't satisfied. I wasn't even clear what was going on because it was quite chaotic.
So, according to you, they did not comply with the requirements?
No, Counsel.
Yes. And when you said that you informed Dr. Manamela that you can't do it, where was this? Was it this in a meeting or what? In a meeting, Counsel. We had normally on a Monday. Do you still recall when was that meeting and where? Excuse me, Counsel? Do you still recall where and where was that meeting? It was at the office, in the provincial office. Which year? Prior to starting with the licenses, when we were instructed about, I think it was about 3 weeks prior to asking for the licenses to be finalized. That will be March. Yes, yes, Counsel. Okay.
What exactly did you tell her?
I've alluded to Dr. Manamela. We didn't follow the processes.
I don't want allusions. I want you to tell us what did you tell her about the license.
About the licenses. I just told Dr. Manamela that I feel uncomfortable of compiling the licenses. We didn't follow the processes, and we're not sure what the situation with all these NGOs, known and unknown, is? Because we don't sit with any documentation. And then she says it's an unusual situation and we are on time constraints.
You told her you were uncomfortable.
Yes, Justice.
And did you do it?
Yes, I was instructed to do it. I was delegated to do it because of the time constraints and the unusual situation.
You have to speak louder.
I was instructed to do...
It's a very important part of your evidence. This, I want you to be clear on the record.
I was instructed to continue formulating and compiling the licenses because it's an unusual situation and we under time constraints due to the closure of life Esidimeni centers.
Did you get any district reports on each of these licenses?
No, Council.
How did you know what to write on each license?
Normally, within the budget letter, all the information would be on the budget letter except for the addresses.
Tell us what's a budget letter.
The budget
Where does
letter.
it come from? Who writes it? And what does it contain?
Each district coordinator, NGO coordinator, and the chief director, signed off by the chief director, will submit a budget letter with all the NGOs, existing ones and new ones. Their number, the number of licenses, the number that would be subsidized, and the amount, period. The amount for that particular NGO.
And how would you know how many beds there would be, and how many people will be covered by the license?
On the budget letter, there's a space for licensing, how many this facility would be licensed for, and then adjacent to that, there would be a subsidized number of people. If a facility has 10 people on the, it will state licensed for 10 and subsidized for 10 or subsidized for 8, depends what the circumstances
So you knew when you compiled the licenses that the details were not correct?
The details on the budget letter was correct, but the evidence, I didn't sit with any evidence to, because normally you will cross-refer what's the budget letter and then take your audit reports and all accompanying documentation to confirm the license.
Did you know that each one of those facilities were not audited?
Yes, Council.
Do you know that that was contrary to the law?
Yes, Council.
And did you know that people will be sent there once you had recommended that the licenses be issued?
Yes, Justice.
And did you know that these would be vulnerable people who would come, for instance, from Life Esidimeni?
Yes, Justice.
And you went ahead?
I was instructed to went ahead, Justice.
Who instructed you?
Dr. Manamela.
And she knew, did she?
Yes.
That the normal procedures for vetting NGOs had not been followed?
Yes, Justice.
And why did you go ahead?
I was instructed by Dr. Manamela, who said it's an instruction and we have to carry it out due to the closure of life.
And if you didn't carry out the instructions, what would happen to you?
We've raised concerns, not just me as a team, we've discussed it, and she's just said it's an instruction.
After 30 years in the department, I'm asking you, you're a very senior official in there, why didn't you say to her this is unlawful and it's going to cause possible death of people and I won't do it?
I've raised my concerns with Dr. Manamela. I've done that.
No, listen to the question. Why didn't you refuse to do it?
At first, I did refuse. I've discussed, and she says there's no other way we can do this. With the result, at the end, I was sort of taken out from a major task of this project, direct involvement.
But why did you sign unlawful, false licenses under the Act? Look at the document. It purports to be a license issued under the law of our country. Can you see that?
Yes, Justice.
And you falsely, fraudulently, knowingly caused the license to be issued.
Justice, I didn't issue the license. I've compiled the license and handed over a soft copy to Dr. Manamela.
No, but you caused it to be issued. You computed the details and the rest and gave it to her, right?
It was an instruction of Justice. I didn't have much of an option.
Thank you. In relation to that particular issue of the issuance of the license and the processes you had explained, is it correct that the duration will take around not less than 6 months?
If I can just, for clarification, the duration of finalizing to open up a NGO.
The license, to issue the license from pre-inspection.
It could be 3 months, 6 months. It depends on the results of the audit.
Yes.
And it can even take longer than 6 months, up to a year, 2 years to finalize opening up an NGO.
Yes. And in relation to that, there has been evidence by Dorothy Franks that there's an ELA document, the ELA file, and I'm not sure whether it's in front of you there.
In the
And in the ELA file there is ELA 49, which is an email dated 9 November 2015.
49.
The time is 10:25 a.m. It was coming from you, inviting NGOs to a meeting scheduled for 13 November 2015. Do you still recall that?
Yes, Council.
You issued that.
Dr. Manamela instructed me to invite the prospective NGOs that showed interest in expanding and new NGOs to be opened,
Yes.
so that they can be formally addressed in a formal meeting at the Sterkfontein Hospital.
Yes.
Normal
But
procedure.
listen to the question.
Yes, I
Did you
said-
issue the document?
Yes.
It's okay to say yes, and then the next of the
No.
questions will follow.
Yes, Council.
You know how to explain yourself away. Just wait, and there will be another question. Yes, you issued the document.
And when you issued the document, you were inviting these NGOs to a meeting. What I want to find out from you is that the NGOs you had invited, does it include those whose licenses appear here, or the majority of them?
Council, this document, this email that went out,
Yes.
it went to all district offices.
Or it went to district offices?
If you can just see there at the top, the district coordinator will then further send the document to all NGOs or people that they have within their catchment area that has shown an interest.
Were those NGOs whose licenses appears on this file I have referred to present at that meeting?
Yes, it was quite an extensive number of NGOs that was present at the meeting.
At the meeting?
Yes, Council.
And at the meeting, what did you discuss?
Dr. Manamela discussed the closure of the Life Esidimeni project.
Yes. And was an explanation about the requirements to comply with the that is statutory requirements for licensing explained to them?
No, Council.
And when did you start compiling in relation to those NGOs compiling these documents for the issuance of the licenses? In
Council,
relation to this meeting?
to compile the documentation,
Yes.
Council. Some of these documentation was never compiled.
They were never compiled.
Yes, Council.
And yet they were issued with licenses.
Yes, Council.
But why didn't you tell the people at the meeting? You're the head of the NGO operations. Why did you tell them what was required of them?
Justice, as I've said earlier, when I raised my concerns with Dr. Manamela, my core function was removed from me, and she was spearheading almost the whole project. And a lot of other people was involved, so I didn't have any direct
When she gave
interaction.
instructions to issue unlawful licenses, who else were present?
It was in a meeting, Council, in our provincial meeting.
Who else were at the meeting?
My other colleagues, we are 5 deputy directors within the office.
Who are they? What are their names?
Mrs. Sanello, Mr. Nello, Dr. Lunkwani, Mr. Tobane, and myself.
So in the presence, you say Dr. Silubane was there?
No, Mrs. Sanello.
Or Ms. Sanello. In the presence of your colleagues, she said, ignore the legal requirements for licensing. These are urgent circumstances. Go ahead and issue the licenses.
They all objected, Justice. We all raised concerns, and it was quite a hectic debate around that.
Why did you object? What was your concern?
Because the normal processes wasn't followed.
But what did you fear would happen if the law is not followed?
What I would have feared was, we don't know the situation these NGOs was in, and especially the new ones that needed to be opened. And remember, prior to this process of the licensing, we've already started doing some surveillance on all these NGOs for expansion, new ones that needed to be opened. And
what did you think would happen if the NGOs did not satisfy the requirements of the law? What would happen to the patients?
That I cannot emanate, Justice.
No, but when you said to her you're unhappy, you don't want this to happen, why didn't you want it to happen?
Justice, if you don't follow the proper procedure, it also influences financial issues. So these NGOs may or may not have or may not receive any support from the department without documentation.
And if they don't receive support, what impact would that have on the patients?
A lot of impact. The services, caring for them in terms of food, etc. There's a lot of things.
And they might die. Right?
We didn't anticipate or think about that, Justice, but there's a possibility.
You just
that
carried on and
extreme measures
signed
can.
Licenses which are unlawful, which would create obvious risk to patients. You never thought they might die?
Justice, if one thinks back in terms of the support you would render to these NGOs, no extreme incidences like this has happened in the past. So you didn't even anticipate that it would happen. And we were thought of our input in supporting these people, that everything would go well.
But why were you unhappy to sign the licenses, though you did it?
Because, as I've said, Justice, in terms of the accompanying support to these NGOs and not have relevant documentation to work with and to work on.
And you know that people died.
Yes,
at the
Justice.
places where you recommended licenses should be issued. You know that?
Yes, Justice, I've heard that afterwards.
How many people have died?
When we heard about the patients that have died, it was the first time when I became known with it, there was, I think, 82 patients. And Justice, I still regret for listening and continuing executing activities.
Counsel,
Yes, thank you. Before we proceed on this, I'll just for completeness sake refer you to two documents that is annexed, just LR 119 and 112. This relates to the basic requirements for all NGOs licensed under Mental Health Care Act, number 1720.
Could you repeat the LR number, please?
LR 119.
Thank you.
And the second one is 122. I'm going to hand them over to you. You don't have them in front of you. And 122, it's termed the guidelines for the licensing of residential and daycare facilities for people with mental and or intellectual disabilities. Just give it to me. These are some of the requirements that you spoke of.
Yes, Council.
You have already testified that they were not complied with. I don't think that it's necessary for me to.
Well, but I want to know whether she knew about these requirements, did you?
Yes, Justice.
And you were the person who was charged by law to ensure that these requirements are complied with?
Complied with. Yes, I know we didn't. No, we didn't comply with these requirements.
No, in your evidence, you said you were the person who was overall in charge of NGOs in the province.
Yes, Justice.
And with the issuance of their licenses.
Whoever
might sign them, but you were the person who you reported to from the districts, and you the person who would say yay or nay and give that to Dr. Manamela to sign.
Yes, Justice.
And you were aware of the requirements in LR 122?
Yes, Justice.
And you had read them many times, and you knew these were the requirements that had to be complied with before you would send patients to these NGOs. You knew
Justice.
That. And so too these guidelines. And is it your evidence that, in fact, knowing all this, you nonetheless breached the law?
I was instructed to do that, Justice.
And why would you accept an order that requires you to act unlawfully?
Justice, because of the issues at hand, Dr. Manamela said we have to do it because it's an instruction from above and all orders has to be carried out.
Well, let's be a little dramatic about this. I instruct you to murder Advocate Groenewald. I now instruct you to rise from where you are and murder Advocate Groenewald. Are you obliged? What's your answer?
Justice. No, Justice. I'm
no,
not
you wouldn't do
obliged
it, would
to
you?
That.
Why wouldn't you do it?
Because it's against the law to do that.
The irony doesn't escape you, does it?
No, Justice.
Yes. In relation to 122, this is the document that came from you. I see that on the first page, there's a date of 19 May 2017. The first page of 122, LR 122.
The
Top
first
right.
Page. Yes, yes.
What does that mean?
This means this document came to effect on 19th of May 2017.
And at the time when these licenses were issued, were these guidelines contained in these documents already in existence?
No, the document wasn't in existence, but the procedure was in existence. I was part and parcel of assisting compiling this document with National. I was roped in.
According to the procedure which existed then, which you ought to have followed.
Yes, Council.
Okay.
And LR 119, in any event, It was in existence then, wasn't it?
No, this one was drawn up by me a long time ago to give guidance and to assist the coordinators to follow procedure in terms of training.
And at the time of the project, it was in existence?
It was there. It was available.
Yes. That's fine. In relation to this assessments, evaluation reports, pre-assessment evaluation reports, or audit report, Dr. Manamela's evidence was that they do exist. You did audit the NGO before they were issued with licenses, and those reports are in existence. She would bring them. We're still waiting for them. Is that correct? Factually correct?
According to my knowledge, Council, it's incorrect. It wasn't in existence. We did not perform any audits at all the facilities.
Mm-hmm. And let me refer you to one example in file 11, that is 7, the bundle 7. It's right in front of you. Let's start from page 2417. Are you there?
Almost, Council. 2417.
Where the divider is. Where the divider is.
Yes.
What is that document? Are you familiar with it?
I became familiar with this document, Council, during the course of the project.
During the course of the project?
Yes, Council.
What is that document?
It's an audit report.
And is this one of the documents which you would, according to the standard practice you have explained, employ to audit NGOs?
According to my knowledge and information, this is not a document that would be used. What we've used prior the project, if you page further...
No, it's fine. I'll come to that. Okay. It's on page 2427.
Oh, okay.
Go to page 2427.
2427. Yes, Council.
Are you there?
Yes.
Are you familiar with that document?
Yes, Council. This is a document that would be used for pre-audit and at the end of the formal audit to be completed.
So this document on page 2417 ought to read like the one that is on 2427.
I have no idea, Council. I can't answer for that. I did not compile this document.
You did not compile that?
No, Council.
Okay.
But why is it so? These are people who are working for you, were they not?
Let's go to page 2423. Oh. Do you see your name on the
yes, Council.
Document?
Yes.
Who inserted your name there?
But this was instructed after the placements of the placement of the patients at these NGOs.
Yes.
And Dr. Manamela, in a way, forced us to sign this document because when I said to her, I've alluded this previously, and during the course, when I became known of this document, that it's not right to use a document that was constructed during the process of a project.
So, so what you are saying is that this document was constructed during the process of Life Esidimeni.
Yes, Council.
So during the process, you abandoned the employment of the document on page 2427.
Yes, Council. Because it incurred a lot of work.
It will incur?
It incurred a lot of work and time. It's very tedious to execute these documents.
Yes. But why was the document on 2427 there?
2427.
Yes, 2427.
It was available, Council.
It was available?
Yes.
Okay. Then let's go through that document so that you explain further on these processes. That is on 2427. And on the, that is page 2430.
I have it, Council.
The first item is organizational information on, that is 2 against 2. What does that mean? Can you explain it?
It means that there should be a copy of the Constitution that was supposed to have been seen.
Yes.
The last date of the Constitution drawn up.
Yes.
Date of the AGM due date the following one, financial statements that was provided, and that would have been confirmed with the formal audit, because the financial person also assists the team when the formal audit are being constructed.
Yes. And would I be correct that that document requires you to explain if there's anything else?
Yes.
And not only that, that is, you must insert it in writing.
Yes, it should be in writing.
Throughout that document.
Throughout the document.
Does the same appear on page, that is on the document on page 2417?
No, Council.
So what are you required to do there?
According to my information, my observation, as I see this here, this document is only a yes and a no instruction.
It's just a tick list.
Just a tick list.
Okay.
So the form on 2427 was adopted to make the audit easier than required by the form on page 2417. Is that your evidence?
Justice, not easier. If you utilize the 2427, it's a complete, detailed report. The one on 2417 is an easier document to get things done. But it doesn't explain anything. Yes, Justice.
In simple language, 2427 is a shortcut to the requirements on 2417. Is that it?
Justice, not really a shortcut, because if you go through the one on 2417, it contains all the information on 2427 and 2431. That whole 2 documents is contained into here. But this one there's no explanations on 2417.
So why the change? What was the explanation for the change from one form to the other?
I have no idea, Justice. I wasn't part of compiling this shorter version of the report.
But this was your turf. You were in charge of this.
Justice, as I've said,
audit of NGOs was your core function, according to your evidence.
Justice, when we started off and there was my discussion with Dr. Manamela and my concerns, I was removed from the core function of NGOs, and a lot of other people was then engaged to draw up and assist with the whole process.
So this form was drawn without your consent?
Without my knowledge.
And without your knowledge?
Not consent. Wasn't aware of when this form was drawn up.
And did you tell her that you are the one in charge and she shouldn't do that?
As I've said, Justice, I wasn't put in charge of the project. I have been withdrawn from core functions of NGO administration.
Council.
Yes. And on page 2446. 2446. There's another audit checklist for community mental health care centers that accommodates users with severe and profound intellectual disability and psychiatric disorders. Are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
What is that document? Can you explain it?
I also have no knowledge of this document. I didn't draw this up in this. My observation afterwards when I found out about this document was also constructed during the process of the project.
Of the project?
Yes, Council.
Were you informed that these documents will be constructed or will be used?
No, Council.
When did you become aware of the existence of these documents?
I became aware late during the course of the project, where Dr. Manamela phoned me and instructed me to tell I was then mainly within the Pretoria area, to make the NGO manager aware to use these 2 documents and not use the other documents. I've discussed it with the coordinator and said to her, I don't know where this is coming from, who construct the documents, but it cannot be used. Hence, if you go to the Tshwane follow-up or visitation documents, they still use the old version and not the new one.
Yes. And upon finding out that they are using these documents, did you object or report to the HOD or whatever? What, other than that, other than telling Dr. Manamela that you can't do this, what did you do?
Council, at this stage, I didn't even see the document, because when I was instructed and called by Dr. Manamela, I said to her, I have no knowledge and I'm not in a possession of this document. And then I was told to contact somebody to send, but the whole process was very rushed and chaotic. I've tried to contact one of the people that she referred me to, Mr. Nello, and I couldn't get hold of her, so we didn't use this document. I only saw it very late afterwards.
Okay. Would I be correct that designing these documents would be your responsibility, part of your core responsibilities?
Or if I should have been part of the designing of it. If I didn't design it myself, I should have been part of it. But I wasn't.
And why do you think you were overlooked?
Justice, as I've said earlier on, with all the concerns, and I think my relationship with Dr. Manala at that stage, I was removed from my core function of NGOs. So I didn't partake actively in the administrative thereon.
Why were you removed from your core function?
She has assigned other duties to me, Justice.
Excuse, I'm sorry, you say it again?
Dr. Manamela has assigned other duties to me.
But did you come to find out why you were removed from your core duty of overseeing the NGO interface?
She did not explain and just said it's unusual circumstances and everybody's help is needed within this, broader than me.
And who was installed in your place?
I was part of the process. A lot of people, there was no direct person restored or put in my place. And mostly senior management and Dr. Manamela was driving the process.
You know, so many people have come here in your department and they've demonstrated one quality, that is to scrum away from responsibility. I was moved away. I didn't see this happen. Are you doing that?
I'm not doing that. Other duties was assigned to me. And there was a shortage of beds, so I was assigned to deal with all the other core
There'll be a
functions.
lot of questions about that. Your name appears in many of those movement of patients. That is still coming. Most of these advocates will ask you those questions. But for a moment, you see, you came this morning and proudly told us that you were the chief honcho in charge of NGOs, isn't it?
Yes, Justice.
Their assessment, their audit. You prepared the licenses. And in the past, even people in your position signed licenses. That was your evidence. And now, there's trouble, you say you were moved away from that responsibility. Do you have any response to that?
I don't have a direct response, Justice, because Dr. Manamela, as our director, has assigned and says it's an unusual project, and she will delegate who needs to do what. So she delegated certain things and divided us into different areas.
She delegated your function to a person you don't know.
Yes, Justice, I cannot answer that.
Why can't you answer that? Why not?
I don't know who she has delegated to take over my role, but we were all busy within the whole project executing certain things.
You know, you're a public servant. You get paid for 30 years to do your job. and to look after patients who are vulnerable. The moment comes to testify, no, you know nothing. Just think carefully your attitude, please. There'll be many questions asked. And don't scrum away. We just want to know what the truth is. Do you understand that?
Yes, Justice.
Please, just help us. We've been here many days, but every one of you comes and just runs away from responsibility. Counsel?
Yes. And why were your duties, let me take another shot, why were your duties assigned to someone else?
Justice, Counsel, my duties wasn't assigned to somebody else. Within the execution of work with the whole team in province, there were certain duties assigned to each of us by Dr. Manamela.
Yes. And the drafting of these documents was done without your knowledge?
Yes, Counsel.
And despite the fact that it formed part of your core functions?
Yes, Counsel.
Yeah.
You know, Dr. Manamela came here and said she knew nothing about the licenses. You presented the licenses to her to sign. You now say you know nothing about the licenses. She instructed you to complete the licenses. Where's the truth there? What do you want to tell us?
The truth is, Justice, Dr. Manamela instructed me to draw up the licenses for the project. When it's time for the people to be placed, that their licenses have been done. And as I've said earlier on, not just me, but the whole team we raised our concerns, and there was quite a headache.
Well, we start our bulletin with breaking news. Another KZN senior ANC official has been shot dead last night. Hannah Kobus, a deputy director who was in charge of identifying and vetting the NGOs, faces tough questions at the live Esidimeni arbitration hearings currently underway. Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa hails NPA's action against Gupta-linked consultancy firms, Trillian and McKinsey, as part of a fight against state capture. And indeed, we start our bulletin with breaking news. Another KZN senior ANC official has been shot dead. Sfiso Mlambo was a branch secretary at Mpembeni near Richards Bay. It's believed he was attacked and shot by unknown assailants while on his way home last night. He died at a local clinic. He is the second ANC official to be killed this year, following the murder of Jozini, a councillor Njabulo Dlamini, on New Year's Day in Richards Bay. Well, Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa has commended the National Prosecuting Authority for its action against Gupta-linked consultancy firms, both Trillian and McKinsey. Addressing the media on the pre-World Economic Forum briefing this morning, Ramaphosa also called for the NPA to increase its speed in the fight against state capture. NPA served the two companies with notices of intent to attach their assets. The companies are believed to be at the center of allegations of state capture.
The other important thing as part of this process is to address the issue of corruption and state capture. And in this regard, we welcome the establishment of the Commission of Inquiry that State President has announced, and we're looking forward to the finalization of the terms of reference of this inquiry. But we've said that in tandem, we want to see action being taken against those who have done wrong things. And we've already started seeing the beginning processes of precisely that. The National Prosecuting Agency is beginning to move, and we welcome that. We welcome the actions that they're beginning to take, and we want them to act with urgency to increase the tempo of the actions that need to be taken. The freezing of assets is an important component of this, but we want to see much more following on the actions that they should have taken some time ago. And colleagues, a message that we will be taking to Davos now will be, we've been saying that we are going to address corruption, and we are deadly serious about addressing corruption, and we're now beginning to see the steps that are being taken in doing precisely this.
Of course, the live Esidimeni arbitration hearings are currently underway. We have been giving you a live feed. Let's cross back.
If a pre-audit was done, this could have been identified at that stage.
Yes, a pre-audit and a formal audit would have been identified.
The pre-audit and a formal audit.
Yes, Justice.
So that the fact that this was found out of a visit made on 28 July 2016, it means that it was not done before.
Can I answer on that? But
yes, you can
I
explain.
can't just say yes or no. According to what I see here, and if you take in conjunction with a formal audit,
yes.
Remember, with a formal audit, the environmental health people will be part of the audit, and they will then measure the space for each person. So it will then be indicated that this facility can only take in 2 people, for instance. And without a formal audit, without measurements, more people, what I observe here, has been placed into this facility.
More patients.
Has been placed into this facility because of what I read here, it was space, there wasn't any space, it was too close, etc.
So the required guidance would have been provided if this this informal audit and the formal audits were done.
Yes, Councillor.
Who ordered this audit?
I don't know, Justice.
But why don't you know that?
Justice, as I've said, we've been assigned different duties during the course of the project, and specific people were assigned to specific areas.
Look at page 2494. It says MHD. What does MHD refer to?
2494. It says?
Under purpose.
Okay. The Mental Health Directorate.
And Westkop is hospital. You are part of the Mental Health Directorate, isn't it?
Yes, Justice.
And you don't know about the audit that was done at Precious Angels?
No, Justice.
On 28 July 2016?
No, Justice.
Why don't you know that? We were working at the Mental Health Directorate.
We are 5 DDs within our office, and we've assigned to certain areas within the whole of Gauteng. So one person would be responsible with taking in all the patients that was placed at the life and the different NGOs. So specific person would then cater or care for a certain number of NGOs.
Do you know that this venue at Precious Angels, the evidence suggests, was a death trap?
I've heard
Many
it afterwards.
patients died. You know that?
Yes, Justice.
How many do you know have died?
But I've heard 18 patients.
18.
Yes.
Souls passed on at this place.
I was saddened when I heard that, Justice.
It would have been your normal duty to audit the place, isn't it?
Yes, Justice.
And you prepared the license that was issued by Manamela, isn't it so?
Yes, Justice.
And people died there because of your conduct and Manamela's conduct.
When I became known of this, Justice, and I looked at I've asked for the address where this is, it was also even a different facility where these patients were placed. The initial facility identified for placement wasn't used.
Did any of your people go to Precious Angel before people were sent there?
Yes, Justice.
Did they compile a report?
Yes, Justice. Not a brief report. Within the process, no formal, normal reports was compiled.
Where is that report?
I don't know. Maybe counsel is, I don't know. I didn't bring along the report.
Did you see the report before people were sent to Precious Angel?
No, Justice.
And you compiled the license which ultimately was issued to Precious Angels?
Yes, Justice.
Did you ever go to Precious Angels yourself, physically?
After the placement, when I heard what was going on, I went to go and look what was going on. And as I'm saying, when I got to the place where the patients was, I then informed Dr. Manamela and I asked her who has placed the patients there, because that was not the identified facility that was initially indicated for Precious Angels. It was a complete different facility, a different address.
Where did you get the addresses that you wrote into the license?
From the pre-visits.
So there were pre-visits?
Yes, there was pre-visits. Justice.
I thought your evidence was there were none whatsoever.
There wasn't formal, normal process visits, Justice, but brief pre-visits were conducted.
At all the places where the licenses were issued?
Yes, Justice. Can I explain that process, the pre-visits or the marathon sort of visits? What happened was, I think it was towards the end of 2015, I then went to Mrs. Mana from Facility and Planning. I was alone that time in the office, and asked for assistance because Dr. Manamela said that when she comes back from leave, she wants a report. And I alone cannot do that, irrespective of what I know and what I have. So I went and asked for support from the Facility and Planning Division. And there were a few engineers still working. And the others even cancelled their leave to support. So we started with formal hospital visits to determine what the costing and what the facility is. And in January, from mid-January, we started with visiting these NGOs with the engineers. She says that the districts shouldn't be involved, and I said to her, because even if they're not involved, after placement, the districts will be involved. So I, on my own, then phoned all the district coordinators and asked for their help. I explained to them, Dr. Manamela said it's not necessary for them to do it, but for me, for my sake, as a person.
What you're talking about, frankly. I asked you about Precious Angels.
Yes, sir, I'm saying the pre-visits.
And there are premises entered into their license. And I want to know whether you've ever visited the premises.
The original place where the license was supposed to be placed, yes, that place I visited, but not the second one.
Why did you write the wrong premise in the license?
That I cannot answer, Justice.
No, but
I
you
only
were there.
see
You went
that.
there. You say you were there.
Justice, I went to the first identified space for Precious Angels, and there was a brief report on that one. But when I've heard what happened, I went then and looked where the patients are with a colleague of mine, and then I indicated, but this is a total new facility. It wasn't even meant to be placing patients there.
But why did you tell everybody and save 18 lives? Tell everybody beforehand that Precious Angel is not ready to receive mental health care users.
I did not do the placements, Justice, of patients within these facilities, in all the facilities.
But you were there, and it's your job
I went
to make sure
after
the
the
NGOs function
placements.
optimally. Why don't you go and scream to everybody, to the whole world? People will die if they're taken there.
We have raised our concerns with Dr. Manamela. We've raised our concerns with Dr.
We're talking about Precious
Manamela.
Angel. I want to understand, what did you do to prevent the deaths that ensued? That's really what I'm asking about.
I did not visit Precious Angels on a regular basis, Justice, because there was other NGOs that I had to visit also and support.
While on that issue on Precious Angels visits, the evidence of Ms. Ngube, that is Ethel Ngube, was that the first patients were received on the 23rd of June. And this visit, it appears it was conducted just a month later.
Mm-hmm.
And you found all these problems, which appears on page 2495. And what I want to find out from you, when did you make these visits to Precious Angels in relation to these dates?
I made a visit to Precious Angels when my colleague found me just shortly after the placement.
After the placement?
Placement, yes.
And prior to the placement?
Prior to the placement, a brief audit was done to identify the spacing for Precious Angels.
Yes.
And hence I say when I got there, it was a total different facility and not the initial identified facility.
Okay. Then let's go to the, that is to the, back to the license on Precious Angel. Let's look at the date there. No, the premises for which they were issued the license. It's on page 2397. Is that the premises you visited?
No, Justice Council.
And which premise did you visit?
It was, I can't remember the address, but it was a premises in Ettrishville.
Okay.
And why issue a license in respect of Linwood Road?
I did not construct this license, Justice.
What do you mean?
Justice, the licenses are all on a soft copy. When the initial licenses were made for Precious Angels, it was made out to Kalafong Heights.
But your evidence is that you completed the details on these licenses.
Linwood Road, I didn't visit Linwood Road.
Why did you issue a license in respect of a premise that you did not know and had not been to?
I did not construct this license, Justice, this one of Linwood Road.
Who did?
I don't know, Justice.
But I thought it was your evidence that you completed all of them.
I've
Or the
completed.
instructions of Dr. Manamela.
I've completed the license for Precious Angels for Kalafong Heights.
But why did you and Manamela play such roulette with lives of leaving people? Why did you do this?
Justice, I didn't play roulette. I've just constructed all the licenses prior to 1st of April, and that was it.
When somebody has a license in hand, they're entitled to do what?
To occupy a facility at a specific space for a specific type of people.
And to receive mental health care users, right?
Yes, yes.
And you knew that?
Yes.
And you knew every time the licenses were completed and signed, people, vulnerable patients would be sent to those premises. You knew all that. Why did you do it?
Justice, if I can say again, in normal circumstances, it would be my sole responsibility and accountability
Yes,
to
and why do you
adhere
assume
to
that
it.
responsibility? So you protect people who were completely in your hands, who depended on you. What is the answer? Why did you do it?
Justice, I regret, really I regret, and
Just
I've
forget
discussed,
about regretting for a moment.
I've discussed with Dr. Manamela, I've raised my concerns, it was discussed. We had a special meeting with Manamela's supervisor, it was discussed, our concerns were raised. Dr. Mazamiza raised the concerns, but Dr. Manamela still continued. It was a process and the days to be followed.
Yes, let me refer you to ELA 26. This is another license for Precious Angels.
Page?
ELA 26, the ELA documents.
Oh yeah, I see, yes, thanks. Yes, Council.
Yes, remember just recently you made reference to Kalafong Heights.
Yes.
Yes. This is a license for Kalafong Heights.
Yes, Council.
And where's the license for the premises which they occupied in Atteridgeville?
There's no license that was made out to that council, according to my knowledge. I didn't make out a license for that one.
Okay, it's fine. Let's then explain why was the license issued for this premises, Kalafong Heights, and for that number of persons. Can you explain that?
Yes, Council. In terms of the licenses for the 1st of April, as I've said, we've done brief pre-visits with the engineers, and all the areas that we visited was measured. So this is the amount of people that the space where Precious Angels was supposed to engage. That's the amount of beds that could have fit into that specific facility.
At Kalafong Heights?
At Kalafong Heights, yes.
Were these beds available, actual beds available at Kalafong Heights when this license was issued?
The beds were available at a much later stage, Council, but not at that time.
But as at the time when the license was issued, the beds were not available?
There were no beds available, Council.
Is it not a requirement that is for licensing that you must issue a license in respect of the actual number of beds available?
Yes, Council, that's normal procedure.
That's normal procedure?
Yes.
You don't speculate on that?
No, you don't speculate.
Okay. And now that they ultimately occupied different premises, is it permitted in terms of the regulations that you issue a license for this particular address and you end up in Johannesburg or some parts of Johannesburg?
It's not permitted. According law, it's not permitted to execute and to allow such a thing to happen, Council.
And what did the department do when they found out that this was happening?
When I raised my concerns about the different spaces available for NGOs and where the people are placed, Dr. Manamela has told me that the corrections would be made afterwards when the project ends.
And on this ELA 26, it appears that it was signed by Dr. Silibano. And from his evidence, it was post-dated.
No, it's the same date.
No, from his oral evidence, it was not signed on the 1st of April.
Yeah, it was signed at a much later stage. Can I explain that,
yes.
Council? It was one Saturday morning. Dr. Namela phoned me and says I must come into the office to do licenses. So I asked her what licenses and what for. Then she says she would explain. Then I said, can't it wait for Monday morning?
Yes.
And she says, no, she needs licenses to be signed by Dr. Salabano. I asked why. Then she says, she was told that Dr. Salabano must sign the license. I said, but we can't do that because you already signed licenses and it's not legally correct. Phone Dr. Salabano again and tell him, let's discuss it on Monday morning. And then by this evening, she phoned me again, I must be there the Sunday morning. And I said, I'm not coming in, I'll see them on Monday.
Yes.
Sunday, around about 11:30, she called me again and says I must, she doesn't have her soft copy, it's in the office. Do I have? I said, yes, I've got my memory stick. And she says I must mail it to her. And that is what I've done. So I mailed the stuff to her.
So the actual signing of this document were not there?
I was not aware, and I wasn't aware even that it has been changed for Dr. Salabano to be finalized.
Why were the licenses backdated?
I have no idea, Justice. She didn't explain to me. And if, as you see there, it was done at a much later stage. If Dr. Salabano signed the license, the dates should also have been changed from 1 April to, let's say, 3rd April that it will be signed by him. And yet it constructs the same amount of, the same time
If you look at the license,
span.
it tells you of the period of validity, doesn't it?
Yes, yes.
So why backdate the day on which it is signed?
Because he signs it. I mean, he didn't sign the license on the 1st of April. He has signed it at a later stage. So he should have or would have signed it on that day that he signs. And that is with any document, I assume, that you sign on that day, you denote that
And
date
no
that you
doubt you
sign.
know that that is forgery.
I don't know what they've done. I wasn't part of this, and I wasn't.
But you confirm that you know that these were backdated, signed on much, much later date than the 1st of March.
Yes, when I've heard, and as I've sent the soft copy to her, it was at a later stage.
And did you report this to anybody?
I wasn't aware of this
Dr.
because
Manamela and Dr. Silibano are acting fraudulently.
Justice,
They're signing documents and attaching dates which are false. Did you report that to anybody?
Justice, I wasn't aware that this was done because after my discussion with her, I thought that the matter was laid to rest. And I didn't hear anything afterwards. It was only at a much, much later time when I saw this document at the NGO that it was done.
And once you saw it, did you go and report to anybody? You're a public official, is an offense or a wrong committed under your nose. Did you report it to anybody?
I've reported again to Dr. Nomela and asked her and I pointed out to her about this.
You told her what?
That the dates and the signing and the signature of Dr. Salabano should have been changed, and they've contain the same date. And that was at a much, much later stage, well beyond the project.
You seem to have been quite hell-bent to act against the law, to ignore the law in this project, isn't it? You've given me at least 3 instances of blatant unlawful conduct.
Justice, from my side, remember we report and we ask, we raise concerns, and we've done that many a times. And Dr. Namela said she'll take it to senior management where they'll discuss it.
Have the police visited you?
Yes, Justice. We're still busy in that process.
Have you made a warning statement to the police?
We're still busy in the process, just not yet finalized.
Yes. In fact, just to final on this point, when, according to the evidence, when this license was signed and backdated, already there were many deaths at this facility, around 20.
Council, I wasn't aware of the deaths initially, only made known at a much, much later stage where we've been informed. So I had no prior knowledge to that.
Yes. Thank you. Then let's move now to focus ourselves on the policies of the department in relation to this issue. I want to find out from you specifically, from your knowledge, when patients were moved and how were they to be moved? What was the plan for the movement of these patients to the NGOs which you had identified?
My contribution, or just
Yes.
the knowledge, the
Yes.
procedure, how it should be done?
Yes.
In terms of procedurally, when you move a person from one place to the other, for whatever reason, the family needs to be notified, the person has to be assessed again in terms of the current status, and a correct placement then needs to be done.
Yes.
And when the person reaches the new facility, a similar thing happens, And then the occupational therapists would come out to that new facility to do a reassessment so that continuation of services can continue.
Okay. Then now let's go to the actual policies of the that is of the department in existence at the time, and I'll refer you to ELA 121, the Mental Health Services Strategic Plan 2014 and 2020. It's a new document. Where's the national policy? And together with that, I want to refer you to another policy, that is ELA 124.
Thank you.
And let's start with ELA 124.
Yes, Council.
And are you familiar with that document?
Yes, Council.
What is it?
It's the National Policy Framework.
And on what?
On a deinstitutionalization of mental health care users and the guidelines on norms and standards.
And when was this document adopted?
This document was adopted in 2014, I think, originally signed off and then sent out to services, to the provinces.
Yes. And the implementation of this project, was it an implementation of this policy?
No, Council.
It wasn't?
No, Council.
Okay. Then let me take you to, the document is not numbered, but on item 8 or clause 8 of the document,
Roles and responsibilities.
yes, roles and responsibilities. It says the roles and responsibilities are consistent with the roles as set out in the Constitution and the National Health Act. The roles of the Minister of Health, the MECs, heads of health, at national and provincial level, the National Health Council, provincial health councils, and district councils are set out in the National Health Act. The roles and responsibilities are articulated in this document only to mental health functions within this overall structure. So I want us to confine ourselves, that is, to mental health functions.
Yes, Council.
Okay.
You're reading from ELA 121?
124. I'm sorry.
124.
Item 8.
Yes.
Clause 8.
Thank you.
Roles and responsibilities. Then, whilst on that, the following page, item 8.3. I'm not going to read the entire set. 8.31, provincial departments of health, the roles of responsibility.
Let me just get it, yes.
Translation of national policy into provincial strategic and operational plans, which include clear targets, indicators, budgets, and timelines.
Yes.
Do you see that?
Yes.
And it sets out a whole range of other responsibilities for the provincial health department.
Yes.
Okay. So, ELA 1.2, that is 121. Was it adopted in line with that policy or not?
I've never seen the signed copy of this document, but I am aware and I was part and parcel of constructing this one-to-one document.
One-to-one document?
Yes, Council.
Yes. In what were you pursuing there? Were you pursuing following the national policy?
The national policy.
Okay. And does it deal with mental health?
Yes, Council.
And does it deal with life as a domain?
No, Council.
It doesn't. Okay, let's go to the document. Justice Msenek, I see it's 11:30.
Yes, I think we should take the adjournment now. And that will be up to 12 midday.
We cross live, give updates and cover sport.
The observer missions, what are they saying?
It will be a very difficult announcement to make, to say whether these elections have been free and fair.
1 in every 100 people are diagnosed with arthritis daily. In an effort to raise awareness, a handful of elderly women, they took to the streets of Soweto to stretch their fight against the ailment.
Western Province upset the Sharks by 33 points to 21 to be crowned the 2017 Currie Cup champions at the Kings Park Stadium.
In Durban.
On time with weather every hour, all the time. For all news, stay tuned to AM News every Saturday and Sunday at 10:00 hours Central African Time.
Sports Live, Saturday and Sundays at 8:30 p.m.
When life takes a different turn.
If I didn't eat the speak, he was going to evict me.
Your will to persevere is ignited.
I'm not a professional speaker, but I'll try my best to give you a word of inspiration.
He was just trying to provide for his family.
If you can't accept it, change it. If you cannot change it, accept it.
And a new story begins.
Made a resolve to myself. I'm learning something new.
Bupilong, every Friday at 5:30. Be part of the life-changing journey.
This is your midday report. Good afternoon.
I will be faithful.
I assume as President of the Republic of Kenya.
Let's take a look at how African markets and currencies are performing now.
the central bankers say the success of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies is just a bubble.
Breaking stories, detailed economy and sport. Tune into Midday Report every Monday to Friday from 12 p.m.
Indeed, the Life Esidimeni arbitration hearing has got underway after a 6-week break. We have been giving you the live coverage of that. However, they are breaking for tea, and we will cross back to it as soon as it resumes. Let's look at news-making headlines. Well, a senior official from the Mental Health Services in the Gauteng Health Department has conceded that proper procedures were not followed in issuing licenses to NGOs that received mentally ill patients from that Life Esidimeni hearing. The Deputy Director General responsible for NGOs, Hannah Jacobus, says former Mental Health Director Dr. Makobo Manamela instructed her to proceed with the compilation of licenses without vetting or auditing them because of the imminent closure of Life Esidimeni.
When you compiled the licenses, that the details were not correct?
The details on the budget letter was correct, but the evidence, I didn't sit with any evidence to, because normally you will cross-refer what's the budget letter and then take your audit reports and all accompanying documentation to confirm the license.
Did you know that each one of those facilities were not audited?
Yes, Council.
Do you know that that was contrary to the law?
Yes, Council.
And did you know that people will be sent there once you had recommended that the licenses be issued?
Yes, Justice.
And did you know that these would be vulnerable people who would come, for instance, from Life Esidimeni?
Yes, Justice.
And you went ahead?
I was instructed to went ahead, Justice.
Who instructed you?
Dr. Manamela.
And she knew, did she?
Yes.
That the normal procedures for vetting NGOs had not been followed?
Yes, Justice.
And why did you go ahead?
I was instructed by Dr. Manamela, who said it's an instruction and we have to carry it out due to the closure of Life.
And if you didn't carry out the instructions, what would happen to you?
We've raised concerns, not just me as a team. We've discussed it, and she's just said it's an instruction.
Now I'm asking you, after 30 years in the department, I'm asking you, you're a very senior official in there, why didn't you say to her this is unlawful and it's going to cause possible death of people and I won't do it?
I've raised my concerns with Dr. Manamela. I've done that.
Now listen to the question. Why didn't you refuse to do it?
At first I did refuse. I've discussed and she says there's no other way we can do this. With the result, at the end, I was sort of taken out from a major task of this project, direct involvement.
But why did you sign unlawful, false licenses under the Act? Look at the document. It purports to be a license issued under the law of our country. Can you see that?
Yes, Justice.
And you falsely, fraudulently, knowingly caused the license to be issued.
Justice, I didn't issue the license. I've compiled the license and handed over a soft copy to Dr. Manamela.
No, but you caused it to be issued. You completed the details and the rest and gave it to her, right?
It was an instruction of Justice. I didn't have much of an option.
The Meals on Wheels cycle tour, something that you who've been watching the show for some time may be familiar with, is getting back on the road over the next few days. With me to tell us more about what it is they're going to be doing is Bevan Jenica, who's to my far left, as well as Geshon Naidu, who's closest to me on my right. Now, just in 2016, you managed to provide 13 million meals throughout South Africa through your 512 branches. Quite a feat, and I think something that you should be applauded for and be proud of. Getting back to the work that you do, can you tell us when is this next Extreme Ride for Hunger taking place?
Thanks, Kendall. Kendall, thank you very much for having us back here. It's really a privilege to be here. The ride will start on the 4th and end on the 9th, starting in Kimberley and ending in Cape Town.
And what are your goals? I mean, are they the same stated goals that we experienced before? Or even for those people who are watching us for the first time, what is it that you've got in mind with this particular project?
Okay, so we have two goals in mind. And the first goal is obviously to raise awareness. To raise awareness of the plight of the hungry in South Africa. And then our second goal is to get people to take action, to do something about it, knowing that there's a problem, and then addressing the problem.
Have you found in the time that you've been in service and action for that the number of the hungry has grown or diminished?
It's grown. It's definitely grown. Currently, we're looking at between 15 to 16 million South Africans that go to bed every single night without a meal. I was reading a statistic the other day that said 6 out of 10 babies born in South Africa are dying of malnutrition. So the statistics are getting scarier and scarier. And the work is just growing, and that's why we feel that these events to create awareness are so very important.
So now, in terms of getting this right, please tell us, Bevan, what are you going to do with the funds that you raise? Because you can go on a campaign, but then at the end of the day, people need to know when they actually get involved, when they do what they want to do for the hungry, the money is going to be used in a way that's actually going to solve the plight.
Yes.
How do you manage that?
We have allocated funds, the funds that we're going to raise already, for a property in Richie. Richie is about 42 kilometers outside Kimberley, and we've been struggling there to get a proper center. So that is the place that we want to acquire, and then Meals on Wheels SA will come and put a kitchen container on the place, on the premises. So that is our goal, so that the people in Richie can be fed with dignity. And because the premises right now is a shack, number one. Most of our equipment was stolen there. There's no water, no electricity. So we want to try to upscale and just improve the conditions for the people in Richie. So
there's some that don't know your relationship with Richie, Kimberley specifically. Can you tell us why specifically Richie in Kimberley?
That is the center that is there for 10 years now, but it has grown with people, many people, but the center itself didn't grow much. So we really want to lift those who are struggling so we can have a standard in Meals on Wheels, and that's really why Richie.
And also you're from Kimberley as well, so it's a community that you're very familiar with, and you know what the challenges the community faces there, isn't it?
Exactly, exactly.
Now, the elements that are important in organizing a tour like this Extreme Ride for Hunger, can you take us through some of those?
There's quite a few, but I'd like to highlight 3. Yep. Number 1, the people, the individuals that's going to be part of it to give back. Because it's a charity event, we want people to come and like you said, we want to enjoy cycling, but at the same time, we can give back to the community. So the people that's going to be part of the cyclists, that's number 1, they're key. Without them, there's no tour. And then also planning and organization. We have to do that, that's vital. And then the sponsors, the partners, with them, they make it possible because they come and they say, how can we partner with you? How can we support to help you? So those 3 elements, it's vital for the planning for the tour.
Now, to bring you in on the conversation as well, Geshon, can you tell us in terms of the bigger program, because you're the National Programs Director, where does this fit in with our program in terms of like how important is it with everything else that you're doing?
Well, awareness is very important, and we're going to have people cycling all the way from Kimberley to Cape Town, wearing Meals on Wheels branding, and we're also going to be stopping along the way, meeting new people, and also helping communities as we go. So in terms of importance to us, this is creating an awareness of Meals on Wheels and the fact that we are feeding close to 120,000 people every day. So these cyclists cycling all the way down to Cape Town are actually carrying our banner saying, we as South Africans are doing something about the plight of the hungry in this country of ours.
How many cyclists are going down this time around?
We're aiming for 16. If we can get 20, even better.
All right, and are you able to share with us where we are now, where you're sitting now in terms of participants?
We're sitting at 14.
At 14?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
that's pretty good. You look very close to your
goal.
to your goal. And entries, when do they close?
The 2nd of February. So we have less than 2 weeks left. So, yeah.
Some of the logistics around entering and participating, can you give us some of that? You know, how much it costs? Is there a cost for a cyclist that wants to participate? You know, how does a sponsor get involved? Can you share with us?
You want to take?
Yeah, it's 9,350 Rand per cyclist, and that includes everything, all the expenses, the accommodation, transport, travel, and everything else, from all the way from Kimberley to Cape Town. And then we also provide all the logistics backup for the cyclists. So it's going to be a supported group of cyclists cycling down to Cape Town, and obviously, again, carrying the banner of Meals on Wheels. So it's almost hashtag cycle for a purpose. So, you know, people always say, you know, all these cyclists are cycling all over the place, but now they're doing it for a purpose.
No, fantastic. Now, in closing, I just want to check with you, how do people get hold of you?
Via our website, Facebook, Instagram. They can Google us. If you Google Extreme Ride for Hunger, we will come up there. They can call us on 053 832 1149, and then we can share information with them.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. Wishing you all the best in this new chapter of Extreme Wheels on Wheels cycle tour, Riding for Hunger. Thanks very much, Geshon Naidu, as well as Bevan Jenica from Meals on Wheels. All right, there you had it. Really interesting conversations we've had today. I know some of them were able to be aired, and this one fortunately made it through. But very interesting days we're having these days, Shante.
Definitely, and of course, everybody having a look at that grilling arbitration of Life Esidimeni. Of course, thank you very much for joining us here on Newsroom. We do it every single weekday between 9 and 12. Myself, Shante Yankees.
And me, Kendall Mohammed.
Bye-bye.